You're all going to get a turn. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I've been hoping my thoughts would be a little more well-formed, but I think ultimately Rochester's difference really is around the experience of living here and raising a family and engaging with all of those things that we all eventually engage with once we figure them out. And to some extent, my frustration with our attempts at branding in the past are really around sort of making sort of obvious choices about, you know, what we should say about Rochester. Rochester made for living. Apologies if anybody here was part of that process, but it's a pretty boring way to go out and say, you know, what's really meaningful about our community. You know, it's like every bank in the world saying, "We'll make your dreams come true," or every healthcare provider saying, you know, learn how to live better or live well. I mean, none of those are differentiated statements. None of them are terribly powerful. And I think that we need to really focus on the truth, which is that we're powerful and a wonderful place to live for families, but think a little bit harder about how we represent that. By analogy, you know, we all buy groceries every day of the week, and yet, you know, you can take my Shoppers Club card from my cold, dead hands. You know, here's an organization which really is one of the finest companies in the world, who has taken something so boring as buying milk and turned it into an experience which you look forward to with a level of relish and excitement and anticipation, which is very unusual. And for that, we pay a price. We have among the highest grocery prices in the country.
Doesn't stop us.
So when I think about how to position Rochester, I really think about engaging with those things that are really true about us, this level of family friendliness, this idea of, you know, I have a 2-year-old and 4-year-old, and I could entertain them with some new thing every day of every weekend of the year, if only I could figure out where those things were. But it's so much more than something that can be described so simply as it's, you know, it's made for living or it's a great place to live. And anybody can say that. We have the stuff to back it up. And I honestly think it's about being smarter about how we say it. It's also about the experience and demonstrating an experience to people, and it's about loyalty. And that's, you know, bringing back the grocery example. You've got to go to Wegmans. I'm going to take you there right now. I'm going to hold your hand and drag you in the door because you don't know what I'm talking about, and frankly, you don't believe me until you experience it. And the experience is what breeds the loyalty, and the loyalty is what drives the experience. And I think that's what we need to focus on in this community is becoming boosters for. From a marketing standpoint, we need to provide a handle to the residents to describe what it is that's so unique and differentiating and powerful about being a great place to live. And then we need to give them the tools to really allow other people to experience that. So, blah, blah, blah. So.
Thank you. Who else?
Go ahead.
I want to do something a little bit different. I do think it's important to think about packaging Rochester, and packaging is what I do for a living, and we've come to the decision that conclusion that we really can't sell the University of Rochester without selling Rochester. And that we have to, right now we're doing a little bit of market research, and we're doing market research on universities, and we're doing market research on Rochester. We just have to do that, we think. But I'd like to talk about something different. There are folks like me who've just moved here, and I would quiz them on what the negatives are, and Carl did a good job of outlining a few of them. There really are some spectaculars, and they're not specific to Rochester, I'm happy to say. New York, the taxes. New York's a high-service, high-tax state. Fair enough. Actually, my wife and I would prefer that to low service, low tax. I sort of grew up with that in Indiana, which was mind-boggling. But even more mind-boggling was we did our taxes this spring.
That kind of says it all, doesn't it, right there?
If the Daily Show had done a parody of doing one's taxes, it couldn't have been as over the top as taking your income from pennies found on the street, dividing by your basal metabolism rate, and multiplying by your age, and then seeing if you needed to use the worksheet on page A11. And I swear we didn't come to a much different number than if we had taken the line off the federal form, multiplied by 0.08 or something, and the state would have wound up with the same amount of money. But the transaction cost that's imposed on every citizen, and I'll bet every business, is amazing. Well, yes, that's a state issue, and this is a municipality or a metro region, and we're thinking about that, but it's a real reality if you're thinking about moving your business from anywhere that's not in New York, or if you're thinking about moving here and you hear the tales, and why not try to fix it? Why not try to begin just by simplifying? And that I gather the state government's also looking at this unbelievable proliferation of government bodies and trying to stream them down. That's a worthy thing too. There are lots of trade-offs there that are, I mean, there are interests in there that'll be harder to deal with. But I would quiz people and say, now what is it that really was a little hard, or quiz some folks who in the end decide not to come. And I've just been in the midst of a long recruitment. We're going to announce on Friday, an associate VP from me. He's coming from Chicago, very prestigious background, and it's a terrific thing he's coming. But kind of a long courtship. And where were his impediments? It would be nice to have some of those and then say, okay, we got to do the big stuff, we got to do the packaging stuff, but what were those very few, very specific things? Can we just turn them around? You know, look really at the negatives and see, can we turn them? And simplification, even if it costs us exactly the same amount in taxes, would save us all a lot of money and aggravation. So that's just one, and that's the one that's hit us biggest since we've been here.
Okay. Thank you. Well, there's two people left, and they're looking at each other.
I'm the host, so I'll go last.
All right. Well, I got it down to two, and they're sort of funny ones. I think you've got to split to some degree how you market the region for business and for, you know, that side of the world, and then how you market the region to everybody else. And so I would break it into two categories. One thing that I think differentiates this region pretty significantly is what I guess I'd call the number of brainiacs. We've got an incredibly highly skilled, highly educated, highly trained population, much more so than most places in the U.S. And even just the number of patents per worker is shockingly high. It's the highest, way higher than San Jose and Austin and places that you would have thought were higher than us. So I would say this sort of wrap around a better word than brainiacs, but the concept is the same. So you've got this incredible talent pool, and it's kind of a way we are. So I'd put that one on the table. And the other one's got to have a little more sex appeal than that. And I'd say that your target for that, and it falls right in the category we're talking about, which is the arts in general, and music maybe highlighted, just because we got something happening that we could leverage. But that hits creative class and, frankly, everybody else. I'd put those two.
Thanks.